Who are the Irish travelers? If you clicked on this video, you've almost certainly seen them. A wagon on a country road, a name in the news, a community you've heard 100 opinions about, and almost none of the real story. So today, we're going to do something simple. We're going to actually tell it. Where the travelers came from, how they lived, the language and the music that are entirely their own, the faith at the heart of their world, the century that nearly ended their way of life, and the day not long ago that Ireland finally recognized them for who they truly are. And who they are is this: one of the oldest peoples on the island of Ireland, a distinct ethnic minority with their own customs, their own tongue, and roots that run far deeper than almost anyone gives them credit for. Let's start with the biggest myth, because it's the one nearly everyone believes. The travelers did not come from somewhere else. They are not Roma, they are not foreign, and despite what generations were told, they were not created by the Great Famine. In 2017, a landmark genetic study led by the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland settled the question for good. Travelers are of Irish ancestral origin, as Irish as anyone in the settled population. But they split away from that population centuries ago, most likely around the mid-1600s, possibly as far back as the plantations of the late 1500s, when native Irish families were driven off their land. Traveling and isolated ever since, they became a people apart, closely related to settled Ireland, yet unmistakably their own. For most of their history, the travelers were the craftsmen of the road. The most famous trade was tinsmithing, making and mending the tin pots, pans, cans, and lanterns that every rural home depended on before the age of plastic. A skilled tinsmith was welcome at any farm gate. Alongside that came horse trading, the beating heart of traveler life, carried out at the great fairs like Ballinasloe, and sealed with a spit and a handshake. There was seasonal farm work at harvest time, peddling small goods door to door, and craft work of every kind. In the 1950s, a traveling family could make a genuinely good living. The life was hard, but it was skilled, independent, and entirely their own. Home was the barrel-top wagon, those beautiful curved horse-drawn caravans, painted bright and kept spotless inside. As late as the 1960s, around 6 in 10 traveler families lived in them, with many camping under canvas tents through the summer months. Life moved to the rhythm of the seasons and the work, from camp to camp, along the quiet back roads. And at the center of everything was family. Traveler kinship is famously close, with extended families traveling together, elders honored, and children raised by the whole community. That bond, more than any wagon or trade, is what carried the culture through the centuries. They even had a language of their own. It's called Cant, or Gammon, and scholars know it as Shelta, an old tongue drawn partly from Irish, spoken quietly among themselves, and passed down by ear, never written down. For generations, it worked as a private language, a way to speak freely in a world that often wasn't friendly. To this day, it's one of the clearest signs of a truly distinct people. You don't build your own language by being the same as everyone else. The travelers also became the keepers of Ireland's oldest songs. In a culture built on memory rather than books, ballads, and stories, were held in the mind and handed down at the fireside. And some of the greatest treasures of Irish traditional music survived only because traveler singers kept them alive when the settled world had forgotten them. Around that same fire sat the storyteller, holding a whole circle of listeners with tales of heroes and ghosts and old Ireland. Irish folk music and folklore owe the traveling community a debt that most people have never even heard about. Faith runs through all of it. The travelers are a deeply religious, devoutly Catholic people, and that shows most clearly in how they honor their dead. To a traveler, a grave is a sacred act of love. The headstones are elaborate and personal, rich with symbols that tell the life story of the one who has passed. The community turns out in great numbers, grief is carried openly, and a year after a death, the whole family returns, no matter how far they've traveled, for the blessing of the headstone. It's one of the most moving expressions of loyalty and faith you'll find anywhere in Ireland. Then the ground shifted beneath them. In the second half of the 20th century, the modern world quietly dismantled the traveler economy. Cheap plastic wiped out the need for handmade tin. Tractors and machinery replaced the horses and the hired hands at harvest. The trades that had sustained them for generations vanished within a single lifetime. Families drifted to the edges of towns and cities or emigrated to England for scrap and building work. The barrel-top wagon gave way to the modern trailer, and the open road grew narrower and less welcoming with every passing year. The state's response only made things worse. In 1963, the government's Commission on Itinerancy published a report that treated travelers not as a people, but as a problem to be solved. Its answer was assimilation, to absorb them into the settled population and, in effect, make their way of life disappear. Not a single traveler sat on the commission that decided their future. Families were pushed off the roads into houses and bare official halting sites. Children were placed into settled schools to be blended in, and a centuries-old culture was treated as something to be corrected rather than respected. And everyday life could be brutal. For decades, travelers were refused in shops and pubs, turned away from schools, and moved on from one stopping place to the next, with nowhere they were simply allowed to be. The prejudice was open and constant, and it left deep marks in their health, their housing, and their opportunities. Yet, through all of it, the community held on to the very things the establishment had tried to strip away: their language, their faith, their music, and their name. And slowly, they fought back. From the 1980s, a traveler rights movement found its voice, with groups like Pavy Point demanding not charity, but equality. Other countries had already recognized travelers as an ethnic group, and Ireland was falling behind. Then came that 2017 genetic study, proving in black and white the ancient Irish roots travelers had always claimed. And in March of that year, in the Dáil, the Irish state finally and formally recognized travelers as a distinct ethnic minority. The Taoiseach called them a people within our people, an integral part of Ireland with their own distinct identity. After centuries on the margins, it was a moment of real vindication. So, who are the Irish travelers? They are an indigenous Irish people who have survived where almost no one else could, holding on to their identity, their language, and their traditions through centuries of hardship. Their mark is all over Irish culture, in the songs that shaped its music, and in the boxing ring, where the community's proud tradition once sent Francis Barrett to carry the Irish flag at the 1996 Olympic Games. Today, a new generation is reclaiming the language, the crafts, and the history that others tried so hard to erase, proud and recognized at last as exactly what they always were, not outsiders looking in, but a people woven into the very story of Ireland.